What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of SSPN Offseason. Ethan, it's been about a week and a half since we talked last, man, and a lot has gone on in Spurs world. We got a trade to talk about today. We got Summer League to talk about, like basically the preseason Summer League in the
Mhm.
California Classic. And then we had our first game last night, which at the time we recorded last week, we thought that game would for sure be including Dylan Harper, still just nursing a little bit of a minor groin injury. But the reward of him not playing last night, Ethan, is that we are going to get to see him go head to head in his debut for the Spurs, at least the Summer League debut, against Cooper Flag this Saturday tomorrow. But before we get into any of that, Ethan, there was some crazy stuff that's kind of gone on the past week, near and dear to the Spurs' heart, in the Texas Hill Country, over the 4th of July. Kerr County, that whole area was devastated by some flooding and storms. So the first thing I wanted to say kind of on this episode was just thoughts and prayers out to that area. I know there are a lot of Spurs fans out there. Um, Not that that's the most important thing when it comes to that conversation, but just with the vicinity being so close to kind of Central Texas and San Antonio, I did kind of want to open up the episode and just say thoughts and prayers to all those people. I know the Spurs have kind of already done some community involvement with that, as well as kind of the Mavs and the Rockets as well to kind of support out there. But just wanted to open up with that.
Yeah, I'm glad you did, Jude. Nothing I can say additional that you didn't already just say, but thoughts and prayers for sure. It's our neck of the woods, so it's a little more personal, I guess. But I don't know about you, but luckily, no one that I know personally was involved, thankfully. But yeah, anything y'all could do, I guess, to help with that would be that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, there's a lot of donation sites
Yeah.
out there through my bank, USAA. They're doing one. That's where I went. They've been, very involved with the Spurs as well, of course, because of San Antonio's military background. I did not know anybody that was involved, but, if anybody who listens and watches to the show did, we send our
Hmm.
condolences and, all
Yeah.
love to the Spurs family and just, kind of this region of Texas.
P. Terry's, HEB, go to companies too. Got to mention them.
Whataburger, Whataburger,
Yeah.
Whatabeezy.
Yeah, they're making it happen.
For sure, Ethan. But to get into some more lighthearted, fun news, the San Antonio Spurs made a trade, and it's to give us more front court depth, Ethan. Let me pull it up here.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? On July 9th, yes, we realize we are a little bit late here. Me and Ethan are doing our best with our schedules to get you guys some content. But the San Antonio Spurs announced that the team has acquired forward Kelly Olynyk from the Washington Wizards in exchange for guards Malachi Branham and Blake Wesley, as well as a 2026 second round pick, which is the least favorable out of Dallas, Oklahoma City, and Philadelphia, which at least Dallas and Oklahoma City for sure will probably be in the playoff race. And if Philadelphia can stay healthy, they probably will as well. So those aren't like super high second round picks either, Ethan. So what's your thought on this? I mean, the Spurs, from my perspective, I'll just jump in here. We did
Mhm.
not give up a lot to acquire Kelly Olynyk.
No, it's two guys that honestly would not have played next year. For a guy that could potentially, will he get 20 plus minutes a game? Probably not, but he'll be a key rotational piece for us. And you know what? Knock on wood, who knows? He might play significant minutes too, with the way the Spurs usually run rotations. But I think he's 34 years old. He spaces the floor. He's a big physical body. He's a really solid passer. Last year, only 20 games with New Orleans, but he did average 11, 6, and 3.5 assists. So those are solid numbers for a guy. And we needed front court depth. So we gave up two guys that, maybe down the line prove to be something. Everyone that watches this show knows I'm very high on Blake Wesley, especially defensively. But let's be honest, it's a log jam in the guard room. We needed a 4/5. That's exactly what Kelly Olynyk is.
Absolutely, Ethan. Definitely. Shout out to Malachi and Blake for all the memories that we had in San Antonio. I know a lot of people might hear that and be like, well, whoa, what memories are there? There's definitely some fun games with Blake Wesley. Like, I think, wasn't it like his first career game where he came in and had
Yeah,
8 and 8 or something like that?
against Chicago.
There you go. You're helping me out there. And with Malachi, there were some 20-point games where he went off as a microwave scorer. Still some good memories, especially, in the few wins that we had in those 22 win seasons. Those guys were a big part of it. We saw Jeremy Sohan was sad to see his draft mates get traded to Washington. or I don't mean just get traded to Washington. I mean get traded in general.
in
Sorry,
general.
sorry,
Yeah,
sorry, Wiz. Didn't mean for you to catch us stray there. Um, but with that being said, Ethan, man, that second round pick, we've got an excess of them, and with those teams involved, I'm like, whatever. Who even cares? You know what I mean?
exactly.
Maybe that turns into the next Manu or Jokic. Probably not. Um, and then, of course, with Malachi and Blake, as much as we tried to still have some sort of like optimism on maybe one of them being able to become a rotation player. With the way that the Spurs progressed, as well as the way that Stephon Castle progressed last season, and with us getting the number 2 pick this year to add another guard in Dylan Harper, like you said, their path to playing time just really was kind of non-existent, especially with kind of a little bit of stagnation, if we're being completely honest, when it comes to the on-court evaluation from last season. It was a tough look for them. And that leads me kind of into the next thing here, Ethan. I mean, here's the updated roster outlook. It just would have been a complete logjam, even if we didn't sign Jordan McLaughlin, which is some other news. After we traded away Blake Wesley and Malachi Branham, Jordan McLaughlin will return and be the third string point guard for the San Antonio Spurs, which we can get into that a little bit more. But the bigger thing that I wanted to pull up here, Ethan, was just that guard logjam that you mentioned. I mean, look at those 4 names: De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper, and Devin Vassell.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that all of those guys are better than Blake and Malachi, unfortunately. And to be honest, this is definitely a product of our draft lottery luck. If we didn't get number 2 and draft Dylan Harper, they're probably still on the team. But obviously Dylan, we've yet to see him play, but I'm assuming he's going to be more impactful than either of those 2 guys. But like you said, really sad to see them go because I think that they were like personality wise a great fit for the team, and obviously friends with the guys, and believe it or not, did have some meaningful games for the Spurs in the last couple of years.
Man, all of our favorites, Ethan, our
Yeah,
favorite bench rotation guys, they just keep trading them. It's Barlow, it's Eubanks, it's Blake. They keep going
Mamu.
away. Mom.
Yeah,
And
rest
then
in peace.
and I don't want to jump around too much. And then they punish us by making Dominic Barlow 1v5, the juggernaut Spurs last night. Dude, I couldn't believe I'm like, Barlow's playing?
I
And then
know.
Charles Bassey was playing today too for the Celtics. It's kind of funny. We're seeing all these all these prospects from the past 2 tank years all playing in the summer league.
Dom didn't play terrible, but he was definitely outmatched with the other team on the other side.
Absolutely, absolutely. But to kind of get back to the roster here, Ethan, I look at this personally. This rotation that we have here of the starters and the backups, we've still got some things to shore up with 2 open roster spots for the main roster, as well as the 1 open 2-way spot. And I was actually just reading a tweet, Ethan. We did extend offers to Riley Minix and Harrison Ingram, which I highly think that they will accept. But according to Paul Garcia, like technically as of right now, actually all 3 2-way spots are open for the Spurs because they haven't accepted them, at this moment. And maybe there's like a thing that could happen where we could tell Riley Minix and Harrison Ingram, or one of the 2, that, hey, even though we offered you this, we don't want you to accept it. Or if you do accept it, we're just going to release you anyway. And, they don't accept it. And then we go with somebody else. That's getting in the weeds for the 2-way contracts. But the point is, there could be more flexibility down there. But the bigger thing I was getting at, those 2 open roster spots down there that we still got to fill out. But when it comes to the kind of 10-man rotation of who's going to be on the floor most consistently, I really like this starting lineup of De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle, Harrison Barnes, Jeremy Sohan, and Victor Wembanyama. Obviously, we've had that up for a while. But now with the addition of Kelly Olynyk here, Ethan, we've got a Dylan Harper, Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Kelly Olynyk, and Luke Cornett backup rotation. Now, as I say all of this, Ethan, there could be some things that switch up. We've texted a little bit about it, but I just was kind of setting the stage here and wanted to read all that off, of course, for the audio listeners as well. So what are your thoughts on this new rotation and, kind of how Kelly Olynyk can fit into the front court? Because we've kind of talked about everybody else for the most part.
Yeah, my favorite thing about it, Jude, is really only one guy who has to play one position, and that's Luke Cornett. Like, legitimately, he is a center. He can't really play 4. Everyone else can play a mixture of positions. So if you're not satisfied with Steph at the 2, Harrison at the 3, there's a mix where Harrison moves to the 4. You got, but those 10 names that you mentioned, I think, are definitely the 10 rotational pieces with some spot minutes from Julian Champagnie and Carter Bryant at some points in the season. But I just love the versatility and the defensive ability of this team, because that was the biggest weakness in the last couple of years, is we weren't switchable. We weren't lengthy. We didn't have the 3-and-D guys. And I think now we actually have a roster that's full of them, and a couple even in the third string unit that won't get that many meaningful minutes. So it's a good position to be in for once, to actually have to decide who gets to play and who doesn't, because in years past it wasn't that simple.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's two things that kind of stand out to me there. We're just building depth. I mean, you,
Hmm.
you were mentioning Julian. So here's the scenario that I've already played out in my head, and we've talked about it. With Victor, there's probably inevitably going to be some games where we just rest our boy, right? He's
Hmm.
the franchise, he's the prized possession. Luke Cornett will move into that starting center position. And as much as, full time, and we were kind of texting about this, Kelly Olynyk will probably be more of a 4 for us if we roll with that backup rotation of him and Luke Cornett. He can also serve as the de facto third string 5. And as much as, Kelly Olynyk isn't as physical as Luke, he's still 6'11. Like, he can still definitely do what Bismack did for us last
Hmm.
season. And then on top of that, we can move in Julian Champagnie, to that backup rotation. Yes, there might be, let me pull this up again. In that situation, maybe you'd have to play Keldon at the 4 and go a little small ball, but I'm cool with that if we have Kelly Olynyk at the 5 and it's in like these one game circumstances and you've still got, a Dylan Harper on the bench to also create buckets. But you can choose between Carter Bryant or Julian Champagnie in that situation to move up and elevate minutes. And I just went with Julian off rip because he's just played more, and obviously he could easily slide into that third string role. But if we continue to see Carter progress, maybe he can just slide up into that 4 position as well. And again,
Hmm.
I don't want to get too all over the place with everything here, Ethan, but I do want to ask you this, because this was another thing, conversation point that I had written down, and I've been seeing it in the comments as well. We've kind of been talking about, at least on the roster when we've been pulling it up, we've been talking about Carter Bryant as a 4. And I definitely do think that he has the potential to play that. But, still very young, and also does have the skill set to play the 3 as well. And really, if you were in a perfect world where, you're not having to worry about rosters and roster holes, probably Carter Bryant would be seen more of as a 3. We've just kind of been talking about him in that context because of that hole on the roster and kind of pre Kelly Olynyk trade as well. Now, with all that being said, I do think that Carter Bryant has the athleticism and the vertical to play the 4. I think you saw that in the game last night. Again, not to jump too much all over the place, but he was able to block a big. It wasn't Mo Bamba, but it was somebody named Bamba on the Philadelphia 76ers, who is, kind of an around the rim player for them. He blocked him from behind twice, dude. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? And that was because of his vertical. And he is 6'7". Yes, 6'6.5" without shoes, but he's listed as 6'7". I'll pull up the Spurs roster. You can see it right there under Chibuzo Ogbo, 6'7", 220. He's listed as a forward, which means he's going to play the 4 or the 3. With all that being said, Ethan, I definitely hear y'all in the comments saying that, he's really truly a 3, but I also think that his athleticism and defensive ability 100% allows him to play the 3. So in a play the 4. So in a situation, where we're resting Wemby and we're moving Kelly Olynyk to the backup 5, you could elevate Carter Bryant, or, we could just roll with Julian Champagnie and have Keldon play there. But again, Ethan, these are conversations that for the past like 3-4 years we haven't been able to have with this roster.
100%. I think I personally would like to see him at the 3, but you're completely right. He can play the 4. Harrison Barnes and here are the exact same size. Harrison Barnes plays 4 and 3, just depends. Early in his career, he played mostly 3, then he transitioned to 4, and now he goes back and forth with us. I think it'll probably be the same story for my guy Carter. And just looking at him in that bench unit, if you talk about moving Kelly Olynyk to the small ball 5, I think he slides right in there at that backup 4 seamlessly, because for the most part, you got Dylan Harper, Devin Vassell, Keldon, him, and then Kelly. Every rotation has at least one guy who necessarily can't create his own shot. You know what I mean, Jude? He's out
Yeah,
there to create defensive mismatches and really just be a dog off ball. That's perfect for him at that backup 4 spot, and we don't lose anything really to size. I mean, how tall is Jeremy Sohan? 6'8",
6'8".
6'9"?
He's 6'8". Yeah.
We're splitting hairs here.
I
I think he fits perfectly as a 3 and a 4, maybe with a little more experience with his ball handling. He's more naturally a 3, and that becomes his permanent
Right.
position, but he can play both.
Yeah, and the other thing just about that conversation as well, we'll see what happens with Harrison Barnes moving forward. Maybe there is a world where we sign him for like 1 or 2 more years. He was out in Vegas yesterday. I think he's very valued in the community of
Yep.
San Antonio as well. So, like I said, maybe there's a world where he's here after this season, but there's also a world where maybe that's Carter Bryant, immediately sliding in for the starting position. Now, we're talking about 2027. We're getting crazy here, but I did want to talk about a lot of the roster lineup and stuff like that. And the last thing I kind of want to end this conversation on here, man, is just if it's not what we have on the board, what do you think the starting lineup would be?
If it's not this, I'd probably go. Can you pull it up real quick?
Okay, yeah, yeah, gotcha.
Sorry,
No
I don't
worries.
want to make. I'll make sure I'm not forgetting a name. De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle, Devin Vassell, Harrison Barnes, Victor Wembanyama.
And then that would make the bench Dylan Harper, Julian Champagny. Ooh,
Hmm.
actually,
Keldon Johnson.
and then with that would move Kelly Olynyk to just the backup 5 or the backup 4.
Correct. And then you have
Okay,
Jeremy and Luke. So you
yeah.
basically just wouldn't play Kelly and you'd elevate Julian to the 2.
Which that just, that's just it's whatever way you want to do it. Because at that point, you just have even more depth with Kelly Olynyk. But in my opinion, I definitely like this a
Me
little
too.
bit more. But if they end up doing with what we just said, I'm not mad at that either. I just wanted to bring that up because I'm sure there will be some other people who are like, I might think something else is going to happen.
There's probably going to be how many games in the preseason are there? 3. There's probably going to be 3 different starting lineups, Jude. To be honest, they're going to have to tinker with things. And the only reason I said the one that I said is because Devin Vassell is technically, I think, the second highest paid player on the team. So as an organization, I can understand them wanting him to start, right? Just like for the nature of he makes a lot of money,
Mhm.
he should be starting. But I think he just fits better with the current roster. I think he fits better as the 6 man.
Yeah. And to that point as well, last year we saw a lot of that starting lineup,
Yeah,
or that version of things where you have Devin at the 3 and then Harrison at the 4. But that was also when we had a need for a backup 5. And the closest thing that we had to that at the time was Jeremy. So I
true
wonder
that.
in this situation, do we go back to what we did at the start of last season? But then the other question you can ask yourself, technically that was Greg Popovich as the head coach. Now it's Mitch Johnson. So all
Lot
in
of lot of different ways we could go with this. I prefer yours for the sake of conversation.
Yeah, all in time, we will find out. It's going to be fun to watch. But yeah, I definitely personally like this
Yeah,
myself. I mean, I even wouldn't hate a De'Aaron Fox, Devin Vassell, Harrison Barnes, Jeremy Sohan, Victor Wembanyama. You just switch Devin and Steph. Personally, I'd rather start Steph, especially with what we saw from him last season and the shooting progression at the end of the season. But honestly, Ethan, we could sit and talk about this forever. The biggest thing for me, dude, is look at the front court.
yeah,
It's
yep. We're nearly there, and we're probably gonna sign one more big. I would imagine.
Yeah, yeah, just for depth purposes. And this leads me into another talking point that I had at halftime of last night's game against the Philadelphia 76ers in Summer League is Winky's making himself known. He's coming for the Brian Wright conversation because this was a big talking point. I don't know if you saw this on Twitter as he jumps to the back. He's very excited about it. But Brian Wright basically just said when asked by Katie George in his halftime interview, what did you guys want to focus on improving most this offseason with this roster? He was like, man, well, when Victor was out of the game, there was a lot of things that we noticed defensively, and we felt like we just really needed to shore up our front court. And that's kind of why you also saw, the Kelly Olynyk trade recently. He was making the point that it wasn't just that they wanted to get Luke Cornett. They wanted to get another piece as well. And that
Hmm.
kind of really sold me on, okay, I think Kelly's going to play the 4 for us. And he's bounced around a lot. Like you said, he was in New Orleans. Then we just traded him from, he was in Washington too,
Yep.
right?
For the
Yeah,
Jordan Poole trade, he was just filler.
right. So he's been bounced around a lot, but kind of the place that he's played the most recently, and correct me if I'm wrong, is when he was in Utah. And you kind of saw him next to Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler. So obviously, when he's playing next to those guys, he's not playing center, and they were kind of playing Lauri at the three. Um, but he was playing next to Walker Kessler a lot. He was playing the four and kind of playing more off ball and not in that total, center role as much as we can see him in the small ball five. I think just later in his career, as much as, you would think when you age, maybe you're less agile or you're not able to do as much of, like all the dribble moves and stuff. I feel like later in his career, he's kind of morphed more into that. And that's probably just, with the style of play in the NBA being the way it is. Obviously, he's always been, like a 3-point shooter. But I really felt like in his time in Utah, I was seeing like, oh, wow, he's putting the ball on the floor. Like you can find some highlights of him, doing some Danny Wolf,
Mhm.
esque dribble moves and stuff. Or maybe I should say what Danny Wolf is doing is Kelly Olynyk esque, since Kelly
Mm.
Olynyk was here first. But the whole point that I'm trying to get to on this spiel is that even though he's like a 6'11", 240 guy, he can definitely still be like, he still fits as a modern four, and he can do things that like an Aaron Gordon can do, for example. Now, he's obviously not the same defender as him, but I just mean in like his mobility and switchability, across the floor, offensively and defensively. He can play on the
Mm.
perimeter.
Just not the same lob threat. I'm
Oh,
gonna say that
absolutely.
because
No,
someone's gonna
absolutely
say that in
not.
the
Yeah.
comments.
I was trying to think of it. That definitely wasn't the best example there, but I was just trying to think of like a modern switchable, like, somebody who's like smaller than him, you know what
Mhm.
I mean? But he's still, I just kind
Yeah.
of always thought of him as like a center. I know he obviously always was able to shoot the ball a little bit, like we saw in Boston and Miami back in the day. But I really feel like in Utah, with the position that they were putting him, with all of the freaking bigs that they were playing, you were able to see him really showcase that ability he has as a four.
Yeah, that was the last time that he had, like, a complete season with one team and a very consistent role. He played 29 minutes a game, and he did average 12 and 6 and 4 on efficient shooting, and I agree with what you're saying about his mobility being switchable. I think back to when he was in Houston for a quick blip, back when they had John Wall and Boogie, or when they traded James Harden.
Uh-huh.
He averaged 19 and 9 that year.
Wow.
Obviously a terrible team, and he then got traded to Detroit because I thought he was him, and then he averaged 9 in Detroit. But what I'm saying is kind of what you were saying is Kelly's got more to his game than maybe meets the eye. And go watch his film from back when he played Kevin Love in the playoffs and he ripped his arm out of his socket. He's got some dog in
Oh,
him too.
yeah.
he's kind of a dirty player. So, didn't he go to Gonzaga too?
Yep, yep.
Yeah, we love our Zag big, so he fits perfectly.
You know who I think is a better example, Ethan, now that I'm thinking about it, way better than Aaron Gordon? Boris Diaw, actually.
Oh, he got a little Boris in him, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
He's definitely got some Boris in him. He's taller than Boris, though. He's bigger.
Yes. Yes, for sure. But the 4 assists that you mentioned in that last year he played, like he can pass a little bit too.
No disrespect to my guy. He is an ugly dude, though. If he sees this, like no disrespect, I'm so happy you're on the team, but he is not a handsome man.
Hey, his buckets make up for it.
Yeah, we try and keep it real here at SSPN, and that's his biggest negative is
Oh
face.
my goodness. Oh Lord. Well, any final thoughts on kind of the roster here, Ethan? Kind of the main thing I wanted to talk about was just the positionness of Kelly Olynyk and Carter Bryant. And the theme
Mhm.
again is versatility with those guys.
No, dude, nothing to add. Just really, really, really excited to have a deep team for once.
And we saw how important that was this postseason. That's not me
Mhm.
saying the Spurs are going to go win the championship, but this is a win now move. And there's going to be so many things that we've been frustrated with over the past couple of years. Like we're going to have a 6'11" and a 7'1" dude both on the floor at the same time coming off the bench. That's just
Unheard of.
been needed. But we'll get off our soapbox on that, Ethan. We do have some games to talk about, and we're a little bit behind on it. So we're going to go ahead and start with the California Classic, and then we'll work our way to Thursday's game, which there really won't be too much to say about that one last night because it wasn't very competitive whatsoever. And
Mhm.
then, of course, we'll end the episode previewing Dylan Harper versus Cooper Flag. But I'll go ahead and get these up. But while I'm doing that, Ethan, we'll start with the California Classic. there were really only 2 games where we had some guys that we truly wanted to evaluate. What were your thoughts on what you saw from the guys when they were out there? I believe in Sacramento, or it might have been actually, I think it was at Golden State this year. It was in Oakland. Yeah, yeah,
I
or San
think it was in
Francisco.
San Francisco, yeah. Not a lot to break down, honestly, on these couple of games. I only watched the first half of both, just to get him out of the way. David Jones Garcia is him. He is the real deal, and we'll probably talk about it here in a little while. But I think he honestly might deserve one of the standard contracts because he is playing out of his mind, and he's been playing out of his mind for a couple of years in the G League, I think, as well. So he might be just deserving of that. He's an absolute bucket at all three levels. But to talk about the guys that we're probably going to talk about during the actual season, Carter Bryant, 14th overall pick. First couple of games offensively, still struggling to find the bottom of the basket from range. I think he hit a couple threes. I think he actually went 1 for 6 from deep in that first
Hmm.
game. Yeah, 1 for 6. There it is in front of me. 7 points. So his shot looks pretty. It looks clean. It looks smooth. He's not afraid to shoot it for sure. It's just not going in. So maybe give him a couple more games to get the rust off, get the chemistry, and that'll start going down. But as of right now, hard to say anything good about the jump shot because it's not going in. But it does look nice. And then defensively, though, he's been an absolute animal. He can guard 1 through 5 in the summer league, probably 1 through 4 in the actual NBA regular season. But he is intense. He picks guys up full court. He fights over screens, and his switchability, not even just like coming off a screen and switching onto his teammate's defender, but just like attacking the ball handler if they're coming to his man. Like if his man's the screener, he
Hmm.
attacks the ball handler and pokes at the ball. And then as a help defender, I mean, we saw the block last night, but he was doing that in the first couple of games as well. And then for Harrison Ingram, I texted you this and I felt bad, but in the first couple of games in the California Classic, looked a little invisible. Honestly, Jude kind of blended in with the rest of the crowd. I had to look at the box score to see if he was actually scoring. I think most of
Well,
his points came from the free throw line. Um, like if we looked at the total points, I think most of them are from the free throw line. As
Look at
far
the
as
look at
go ahead.
this I got up right now, not to interrupt you, but
Oh,
this
you're
is
good.
kind of an example, to your point, had 22 minutes, went 1 for 7, 0 for 1
Yeah.
from 3, did have 2 steals and a block, and 3 boards and 3 assists, and was +3 in the plus minus, but to your point, really, not a lot that shows up there on the stat sheet or through the eye test.
Yeah, I mean, plays really hard, hustles
Yeah,
for the ball, solid screener, but just I don't know. I would expect a little bit more from the guy that we drafted in the second round last year
yeah.
and had a full season in the G League. Like you think maybe offensively he's a little bit more developed at this point, but maybe I'm putting too much expectation on a second round pick. Um, and then the last guy I really tried to watch was Riley Minix, and my analysis of Riley Minix remains the same, dude. Give him the ball and he's gonna get you a bucket. Like kind of similar to David Jones Garcia, except I think Riley Minix is more of a playmaker. Like David's gonna go get you a bucket. Riley Minix is gonna make a play for either himself or for somebody else, but he's not very athletic defensively. He's still not there. But I love his size. I love his physicality, and he can put the ball in the basket, Jude.
I love your synopsis there from the California Classic, Ethan. Nothing to add from you, boy. I will just let y'all bask in the Ethan Quintero analysis there. But with that being said, Ethan, let's talk about last night's game.
Oh
A
man.
41-point win for the San Antonio Spurs. And if there was anything that I had to add to what you said, it would be about David Jones Garcia. He had 22 in the first half of this game, only played 18 minutes. They didn't play him much in the second half. And like immediately to start the second half, he's like, there's a miss and he's just right under the basket. Easy rebound, put back. Like he was just everywhere. And it was so smooth. Obviously, he had it going on, but he's had it going on all summer league. He averaged 25, 7, and 3 last year in the G League. He did play for the Salt Lake City Stars a little bit. So I think he was on a two-way or like a Exhibit 10 contract with them. He was technically involved with the Jazz for a little bit, but they let him go. He went back to the Mexico City team. He kind of worked his way up in college. I did some research on him, but I'm forgetting the 2 teams that he played at before he went to Memphis. I think DePaul might have been one of them, but regardless, I know he finished his career at Memphis.
hmm
and he was a first team American Athletic Conference player there. I think, oh man, I was going to say the American Athletic Conference actually has a really good basketball history, like with Houston, who was there for a while, but Houston just moved to the Big 12. And I think that was actually Houston's first year in the Big 12. So it wasn't, like he was in the same conference as Houston, but still, college basketball is a little bit different. I think that might have been the year that FAU actually went to the national championship. So
Hmm.
they were in the American. So there you go. The point is a pretty solid conference to win first team on. And he's from the Dominican Republic as well. So got a little bit of island ties as well. Of course, Timmy Duncan was a U.S. Virgin Islands native. So, of course, a little bit of spunk there. The Spurs always love um, any sort of foreign connection with any of
Hmm.
their players. So there's a little bit of that. And he has the last name Jones Garcia. I know he's kind of been known more as David Jones, but if we can get a Garcia on the back of a jersey in San Antonio,
Oh man.
I mean, they're going to be rocking and rolling for you, boy, when he steps on the floor. But the more important thing is the dude's been going off in every single game he's played, and he's been super efficient in all of it. And it's we saw it in the G League for a season last year. He was obviously still a very solid college player, even though he went undrafted. And I think he's just kind of had to prove himself over the years. And like you said, Ethan, the first couple games in the California Classic, I think I texted you. I was like, man, this is the two-way guy. It's not my guy Cam Carter. We'll get to him in a little bit. But with David Jones, I was like, this is the two-way guy. I mean, he's showing up, but with the way that it's continued to progress, Ethan, it's like maybe this guy is a legit roster spot guy. And again, let me pull this up here, Ethan. If we roll with what we have an opening at the shooting guard. Now, you could move Julian back there and move Carter Bryant to the three and bring in two more front court guys. And I wouldn't hate that. But again, with Carter's versatility, as well as just the depth that Kelly Olynyk brings, and the way that this dude's playing, man, I'm very open to him being the third string too, and kind of replacing Malachi Branham in that sense.
I 100% agree. And not to be too formulaic, but if you bring that depth chart back up, if you
Oh
look
yeah,
at the third stringers here, we got Jordan McLaughlin, Champagny, and Carter Bryant. One thing missing from that lineup is a bucket getter. And so if we
no,
keep it
that's a good
simple like
point.
that, like him with those
On
three
ball
guys,
creation.
yeah, he creates some shots for other guys. Jordan McLaughlin's just a playmaker. Like I think that works, and he's earning it, dude. Something has to be said for that.
Yeah, and the other thing too, I know the G League isn't everything, but you don't average 25 in the G League and just like be a bad scorer. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah. No, I mean it's translating in the summer league. I think you got to at least bring him in a training camp.
Yeah,
At bare minimum, maybe throw him out there in the preseason. Like we did that with David Duke Jr. for like 2 years in a row.
right.
See what he could do against some actual NBA level talent on a bigger stage.
Yeah, it's going to be a different animal
Yeah.
in the league. But I think the consistency that he's showing, if it continues, it's got to be a no brainer. Even the announcers were like, somebody's got to sign this guy if it's not the Spurs.
It was just so effortless, and defensively, he's not a slouch either. Like he wasn't getting targeted. He's got good size, good length, good tools. Um, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I'll talk Carter Bryant here a little bit. Obviously, still kind of waiting for the shots to fall, but the shot doesn't look bad, dude. I
No,
think it's just gonna I know it's just 4 summer league games. I don't want to overreact, Ethan, but I think kind of if there's anything that I've gotten from Carter Bryant in these first 4 games is that he might just take a little bit longer to get on the floor, hence trading for Kelly Olynyk. Um,
good point.
and I think that he's going to be fine. I think we probably just need to put him through the program, let him play in Austin a little bit. I think the last time we talked about this, we were like, I don't think he's going to go to Austin with the way the roster's built. But again, that was pre Kelly Olynyk trade and also pre kind of watching them in these 4 games. But still, as much as he hasn't been knocking down shots at the rate we would like, 3 blocks and a steal, like you said, you see his point of attack defense, you see
Hmm.
his ball pressure. Kasparis Yakachonis is going off today in Vegas. That's who they had on Kasparis. It was Carter Bryant in that first game against Miami. Kasparis went like 1 for 7 or something. Wasn't able to get going at all. So the defense, the athleticism, the off-ball spacing. Even though he's missing the shots, where he's placed, like it's just the execution offensively when it comes to his shot making. And I just feel like we saw enough on his college tape like with his percentages and stuff, that like it's just going to be an adjustment in the NBA, but I really have confidence in that long term. And maybe that's me being, having Spurs colored glasses, and maybe his shot just never works out, but I don't know. He's so young. Again, I don't want to overreact to the 4 summer league games, but I do think that, maybe some time in Austin this season will be on the docket, which I wasn't forecasting as much prior to these 4 games.
I agree with you. I would also say we're 2 great games away from being right back on the train with let's get him in there with the real rotation, right? So let's see what he could do, finish up the summer league here. I also think this like something to remember is that if he does play with the real Spurs, he's probably not going to get this many shots at like this
Uh-huh.
volume. Nor will he have the ball in his hands and be trying to make something happen. Like he will be in the corner or cutting to the basket for lobs because he's super athletic, and I think we saw that for his from his defense the other night as well.
And that was kind of his offensive role at Arizona,
For sure.
around guys like Caleb Love and all the other talent that they had this season. So yeah, I'm not worried about Carter Bryant, and I'm especially not worried about his defense because that is
Oh my
showing up.
god. Dude, that is next level. And to think that we have him and Stefan and Jeremy and Victor all on the same team is pretty amazing. And give Luke Cornett a shout out too. Wasn't he top 10 in
Yep.
defensive field goal percentage? So like we have ourselves some real dogs on the defensive side this year for the first time in what feels like a decade, literally.
Yeah. Yeah, it goes back to why Lou, while we were, okay, we've been doing this for 2 hours and we kind of want to go to bed because we have work tomorrow. Lou's in here like, dude, y'all's defense, it's going to be insane.
He is correct as usual.
For sure, Ethan. We're getting to the end of this episode here, but we do have one more thing to talk about. Obviously, we got a big game coming up this weekend, Ethan, or tomorrow, excuse me, this weekend and tomorrow
Mm.
at 3 o'clock Central Time on ESPN. Dylan Harper makes his Spurs Summer League debut against Cooper Flagg and the
Ooh.
Dallas Mavericks. I feel like I've already asked you this question a little bit before, but since it got delayed, and we've kind of got to see Carter Bryant, we've got to see David Jones Garcia, we got to see Harrison Ingram, Riley Minix, all those guys. Dylan Harper specifically, what are you looking for when you turn on the TV tomorrow?
Explosive offense. That's it. I want to see him get downhill. I want to see him get to the
Mm-hmm.
basket, create for others, and just be extremely explosive at the rim.
Yeah. I'm super excited to see him in the pick and roll. I'm super excited to see him attack the basket with the ball in his hands. And I'm super excited to see guys like Riley Minix and Carter
Hmm.
Bryant playing off of him. Shoot, David Jones Garcia.
Yep.
Obviously, he's had the ball in his hands a lot, and he can, give Dylan Harper a break a little bit. Maybe we'll get to see some glimpses of some off ball shooting from him there. But I'm sure for the majority of the time, Dylan's going to have the ball in his hands. So I'm excited to see what David Jones Garcia will look like as an off ball shooter as well. But man, this team coming off a 41-point win without the most talented player that you brought there, sometimes you do that, and the game will probably be a lot closer with Cooper Flagg tomorrow.
Mm.
But I'm excited to see how this team meshes, Ethan, because we were kind of talking about Becky Hammond and Kyle Anderson. I'm going to knock on wood here, but that was a great start last night. And adding Dylan Harper only gets me more excited. If we can have
Hmm.
another dominant win tomorrow, this summer league squad might be able to at least, Ethan, I think, get into that tournament where we can have some extra games to watch.
I am crossing my fingers. Tomorrow will be a good test. Mavericks are also
Yeah.
1-0, but Cooper Flagg struggled against Bronny. So I'm curious to see how he's going to do against Carter Bryant, who I think is a little bit better than
Hmm.
Bronny defensively. Am I going out on a limb
No,
saying
you're
that?
not.
Uh, but also, Cooper Flagg, number one pick. I think he shot 6 for 25 in game one, like really, really bad. So I wouldn't be
I think it
surprised
was
if he
5
took.
for 17, but I could be off
Oh,
there. Or no. You're right, because I checked that in like the third quarter. My bad.
all good. I could be wrong as well. Regardless, it was very, very bad field goal percentage. So I wouldn't be surprised if he took that personally and tried to really, really come at the Spurs, especially since they have the number 2 pick and Dylan Harper. A rivalry will be born tomorrow at 3 o'clock, Jude.
Absolutely. It's going to be a preview of a division rivalry as well. Okay,
Mhm.
5 for 21. We were both like in the middle. We were both
I
wrong.
got the 5 right.
Yeah. But here's what I will say. Remember Wemby's first summer league game?
Yeah, true. That was very disappointing.
So I'm not. I will say with what with what Carter did against Kasparis and the way that he looks today in Las Vegas, and also just that he has been showing out defensively, that definitely gives me some hope. And I think that Carter's going to cause him some problems, but I also think that Cooper's going to be highly motivated to have a bounce back game. But Dylan Harper's going to be highly motivated to go 2-0 and show out in his Spurs debut too. So this is probably going to be the most intriguing game of Summer League so far. And I don't think that's crazy to say. I don't think that's Spurs fan bias.
ESPN is rubbing their hands together right now, Jude.
We got something
We
on a
got something
Saturday in
cooking.
July.
Yeah, we got some numbers at the time where it's usually dead, so they're
Yeah,
excited.
for sure. I'm super excited too. Any final thoughts going into this Summer League weekend, Ethan?
Go Spurs, go.
Let's see Dylan Harper. We're ready for it. I haven't repped this enough. Area 51 in the building. Look at Stephen Wemby. We gotta add another one. You might as well add De'Aaron Fox and Dylan Harper in here as well. And another thing I want to say, we had this recorded episode. We had the one last week, Ethan. It's been a while since we've done a post game. Next week, Monday and Thursday, for both of the Summer League games, we will be doing post games. We weren't able to do any of the ones this week because I was on vacation for the 4th of July. And then on top of that, it was the California Classic games. And the Thursday game in Vegas was also 9 o'clock. So that was just a little bit too late for me and Ethan. But next week, we have some reasonably timed games, at least for our time zone. So we will be back doing some post games, recapping these Dylan Harper appearances, all that stuff. We're super excited for it, and we appreciate you guys. So with that being said, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button below if you enjoyed the content. If you want to stay updated with the channel, don't forget to follow us on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at SSPN on YT, at Jude McLaren, and at Ethan_Quintero. We appreciate y'all. We'll catch y'all in the next one. Go Spurs, go.